The better way of doing this, so that you guys don't have to worry about the feeds crossing, would be just not be a plebe and have a second computer.
I mean, I have 3 in the corner, Tony.
I got.
There's
in
another
front
one
of
over
3
there,
myself.
and there's one in my living
There's
room.
a laptop here. There's a laptop there. 1, 2, 3 desktops, plus a laptop for work in my van. I mean, technically, I got an old
I know.
Pentium 2 tower from one of my old jobs over there.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, I'm gonna scrap it for parts, but still, it's functional. Slow but functional.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, I figured from this group we'd have at least a few extra computers lying around.
okay, I've been checking it, and it seems that my audio is all perfectly freaking functional. I don't know what was wrong with it to begin with. So, yeah, literally all I did was delete my inputs and recreate the inputs. All same default settings either way. And I've got the stream pulled up on my phone. I sent it to Troy. I mean, everything seems functional. I'm not getting any echo unless, somebody's playing it through their speakers and their microphone is picking it up as well, and that feedback loop. But other than that, I'm fine. I'm good. I have no problems, so I'm just gonna go make that public in a second. Just the splash page. How's your surprise dog? Okay, excellent connection. Get you. So you get another surprise dog? No, okay.
I had to turn my furnace on.
Well, at least you have a furnace to turn on.
Tristan has a big picture now.
Yay!
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Tristan, Amy is saying she cannot hear you. I'm not sure if that's a everyone thing or your audio is goofy.
Can you hear me now? I think I did not unmute my microphone. Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. So I'll go over that again just to be sure. Just as a reminder, this is these meetings are counted towards voting rights and other such related things that attendance is based on. So do please make sure you are emailing Christina at Kramer at animetwincities.org or secretary at animetwincities.org to let her know your name in the chat, as well as post in the chat that you are here so that you are counted for attendance. Hold on. Let me minimize the window there. So all right, so we are going to get this ball rolling here. First thing on the list tonight is to recap the off-cycle board actions and votes. The only thing on that list at this time, unless I've missed something, is the announcement for our choice for the open member at large position. We did interview 5 candidates recently, and we, as the board, have decided to put forth with Dave Vetrovic as the person that we feel is appropriate for that position. We will be getting links out to those people that have voting rights here very soon, so that you guys can place your votes on that. How these work for filling the positions in between votings, the annual votings, is that the board will interview the candidates. We choose a person by majority that we feel is appropriate. We present it to the voting memberships, and that they then get the chance to make a yes or no vote on that candidate. If the majority of votes for that candidate are a yes, that person will then at the next meeting take their seat as a voting board member. If the majority of votes are a no, then that person will not get the position, and the board will have to go back and discuss amongst themselves who they feel of the remaining candidates is the next best choice to fill that position. That process then would rinse and repeat until either that position is filled or we run out of candidates. At which point we would not be filling the seat if we were to run out of candidates.
Just a clarification on that, we do not need to continue going through all candidates. We can elect to leave that seat open as long as there is at least one seat up for an election.
Thank you.
So, just clarification on that. We do not need to fill the seat.
Okay. Okay. I lost my train of thought there for a moment. So at this point,
But
what was that?
never mind. Go ahead.
So at this point, I would like to put forth the. Do I need to put forth a motion for Dave?
Yes, you do.
Yes. Okay. So then at this point, I will put forth a motion for Dave Vetrovic to be presented to the voting membership for the open membership member at large position.
I'll second that motion.
Hello?
Yep. I was just waiting for Christina to start to finish typing, just because she's got to read it back to make sure that we got it right.
Okay. We're presenting the motion to appoint Dave Vetrovic to the vote to be to fill the open member at large position.
Yes. Right. All in favor?
Okay. So we've got 4. Just the majority.
Yep. At that point, that does make the majority. And then, do you feel it would be appropriate to make a motion to, if Dave is not elected, to speak with the next candidate and propose, have them ready to be proposed for the next meeting?
No,
Okay,
you don't do anything until after the membership votes.
that's fine. I'm just trying to make sure my butt's covered.
Mhm.
All right. Unless anybody in the chat has any questions on that, I'm not seeing any new questions. That will bring us into our open session that we usually hold for the first 30 minutes. If there is anyone here that has any questions, comments, concerns they would like to discuss that they have, go ahead and post it in the chat. Why was the ATC posting in support of Renfest, which has major controversy surrounding its cancellation and how it was handled, but not any cons we partner with or even charities we partner with? At this point, that's not something we have discussed yet. That is definitely something we can discuss. I know we've been a little bit up in the air trying to get our footing on the social media stuff. Unfortunately, I don't really have too solid of an answer for you at the moment, just because we have not discussed it yet.
As a board member, I would like to discuss why that is on our social media. Because yes, we haven't talked about any other conventions, and why are we announcing? I must have missed this post. Why is it still up?
Yeah, I didn't see it at all. But it's from 3 weeks ago at this point, so.
Yeah, I mean,
But it happened
after
after the last. It happened in between board meetings.
Oh, that would explain why I missed it then.
Yeah.
Additionally, I mean, we didn't even come out with a voice of support, not only for any of our other local conventions, but not even 2DCon, which we literally contribute thousands of dollars to. I mean, I know why we posted in support of Renfest. And I think a lot of the other membership knows why we posted in support of Renfest. I think the concern is that we only supported Renfest publicly, and with all the other conventions that we work with locally or regionally that faced cancellation. And I think that was part of the problem. Is it appears to be didn't appear to be a level playing field. Not saying that that's anything that any of the individuals here are responsible for, but it's can be a bit of a systemic issue if we're not providing a consistent message of support to our community. My 2 cents.
No, I can agree with that. We do have to be kind of slightly selective on where we're throwing our name around. But we do still need to, if we're going to be supporting the community, we need to support the community.
I think we definitely need to make sure that when a social media coordinator is selected, that we make it clear, because I apologize if this is a weird question. What does the Renaissance Festival do for ATC? Like, how do we partner with them? If we don't partner with them and we don't do anything with them, then why are we posting?
Because the staff who posted it crossover.
I could fill in that blank. I cross over also, but I would not bring that here.
Right.
Just as I wouldn't bring ATC stuff there, because I'm not aware of any sort of partnership or anything like that. So from a board standpoint, especially when we're selecting a new coordinator, we need to make sure that they are not posting personal stuff, that they are posting things that only they're posting as ATC. So it has to be organizations or groups that we are partnered with and that we directly support. If we're not doing anything for Renaissance Festival, that does not belong on our page. If anything, it looks like it was only interacted with 4 times. Quite honestly, it should probably be removed. There's definitely a lot of controversy around that statement because they essentially flat out say that they don't agree with the state. And there was a lot of background conversation that has no place here, but that should not be coming to ATC, especially if we don't have a partnership.
So would that be something we would motion to have it removed, or does somebody just go remove it?
The social media is under board oversight right now, so I don't see why we need a motion to remove it. There is no coordinator. There's no coordinator that we're violating a policy by going in and doing it. So
yeah, I think since Tristan has
need a
access
motion.
to it, he should be able to just take that down.
Already done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing that up. My
I-
Facebook was down for a few weeks, so I apparently missed those posts.
And I know personally, I'm not too much in the Fest community, and I don't pay too much attention to their news, so I was not aware of any of that controversy. To be perfectly honest.
Controversy aside, we don't have a partnership with them. We don't mutually gain anything, and not even gain. We don't mutually benefit from each other's existence.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're parading around, they're giving us a table for a weekend or something and saying, hey, ATC is a sponsor. We don't give them money, they don't give us money. Like, there's no business transaction. Controversy aside, that was already inappropriate in its existence.
Actually, I completely agree with you. However, is this something that we would like to look into networking with them? I mean,
not anytime soon.
Okay.
It doesn't align with our mission anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's maybe one.
There's you sound a little angry, and just in case there is any Renaissance person being like, well, I was going to partner up with you, but not anymore, and I'm just kind of like, do we want to, and do we need to?
Yeah,
probably not. Do we want to? We should probably leave it open.
Yeah, so we can leave it open. At this time, I would not think it's good because it doesn't align with our mission at all. If anything, Asian cultures are underrepresented. And we're specifically looking at Japanese culture in our mission statement. If there's only one booth that does any sort of Asian background, maybe we can do something in the future. But I've also personally, I've worked there for over a decade, and I've been involved with the festival and multiple levels for over a decade. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, I totally understand. Also, I know that maybe I shouldn't bring this up here, but I do want to bring it up just to say that I did bring it up. I know that a lot of anime cons are like, hey, you know, we're geared towards just Japanese culture. We love the Japanese culture, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. It's great and all. However, we should take a look into expanding that into other Asian cultures like Korean cultures and Chinese cultures. Reason why I want to say that is because there is a lot of manhwa, which is webtoon. Webtoon is growing majorly in popularity. I've been reading it a lot. It's super popular between my nieces and nephews who are like in their teenage years. These fucking Gen Zs, and they know everything. Oops, I didn't even say that word. Sorry. You know, these Gen Zs, they're like Korean webtoons, or you know, it is like the next thing. And then obviously there's also the Chinese version of manga too, which is sorry, Tristan messaged me and I totally lost me. Also the Chinese version of manga, it's also getting really, really popular. And I'm not talking about like boys love or BL, although that's the genre that I personally read. It is getting very popular, like Novelist for Korean, and then the Chinese one, which is like the cultural demonic something, and it's just super popular. And I think that next time we say we should, in the future, we should start promoting Asian culture and not just Japanese culture anymore, because the anime world is expanding into a lot.
Okay. I want to make sure that we finish the social media conversation if we need to first. And then, yes, I would like to go into what Hertura is talking about because I do have stuff to add to what Hertura said. So I just want to make sure that we're wrapped up on the social media side. The last thing I see is that they're asking who's currently oversighting it.
Currently for the most part that would be me. We're trying to work with the board to make sure we're getting things appropriate and kind of try to find a track for ourselves, because we haven't really had that. In the past, we've kind of been all over the place. We're still trying to get access to a few of our older pages that the people that controlled them no longer have access to their old emails or phone numbers. So that's been a bit of a challenge. But trying to get it up to par and get at least some sort of a goal or a target to get on a pattern of posting with.
And I guess right now probably the main concern is just like who is posting on Facebook. Is that something that you're doing, or is it something that
At the moment, that has been since our last round of the coordinator interviews. That has been me for the last 2 weeks or so. About.
Okay. So at this point, no one outside of the board has access to the social media pages. You're a coordinator still, so you still count.
Well,
I'm not on the board. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes.
I would say,
Yeah.
don't you also have one of your SOS staff members who was given posting permissions?
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So, yes, there are a couple, but we have made sure that we know who.
Okay.
Yeah, so to be perfectly clear, it is only board and 2 members, the coordinator and a designated member of SOS. So if that answers that question, I haven't seen anything else pop up. Going back to what Hertura was mentioning, yes, it personally bothers me that it says Japanese, but that requires us changing our mission statement and that one. So this ties into the bylaws thing. Why can't I think of what it was? The one document with the thing.
Articles of incorporation?
Articles of incorporation. So going back into those, it looks like we don't actually need to update those. What it looks like is that a copy of the bylaws just got scanned in. So that's not actually what articles say. So the articles by themselves, as they stand now, are fine. But I do believe our articles do state Japanese explicitly in it. They do. So that would definitely require us to amend our articles, but we don't have to rewrite our articles. So we would have to amend the articles and the bylaws in order to incorporate Asian in general if we wanted to generalize it, because a lot of that is crossing over and expanding. And we already include a lot of that. I've seen Korean games get pulled in. Like, we're not focusing on Japanese-centric games anymore. There's Korean games getting pulled in. There's Chinese games getting pulled in.
Yeah, it's all starting to get very, very brought together.
I mean, if you guys have been, I'm really sorry. If you guys have been to Asia lately, before COVID, even the Chinese, or I'm sorry, when I was in Japan, their arcades would actually welcome in Korean games just to see how popular it is for the competition. And if you go to Korea, you'll see that there's major competition, like Pump It Up in DDR. There's like no end to that competition over there, and it's fucking amazing.
Yep, and
it's awesome.
In a weird way, most of the people who are attending the convention, or most of the people who are involved with ATC, are not necessarily concerned or aware that what they're the media they're consuming is not Japanese specific anymore. Some of them aren't aware that it's coming from Korea or it's coming from China, or I've even seen the Philippines pop in a couple times. So yeah, generalizing that a little bit more would not hurt in the long run. I'm not against it.
And it could, yeah.
Yep.
There's lots that's a whole really deep rabbit hole of discussion. Definitely get it on. May want to get it on the menu for one of the meetings, But yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, a future meeting or something, especially after we get the bylaws sorted out, which should hopefully be soon, and we'll talk about that later. Hopefully, big hope.
Fingers crossed.
Dave, I'm sorry, I just looked at chat. I'm assuming you're referencing the comment I made about how it looks like they were scanned together. On our website, when you click Articles of Incorporation, you'll see the old bylaws. So somebody looking at it will read it as the bylaws were attached. So therefore, if the bylaws were submitted with the articles, you'd have to resubmit the entire article itself. But it looks like just somebody with a scanner uploaded a document with too many pages. And that the state doesn't actually see, or the IRS doesn't actually see them as one document. It's a weird thing, but your articles of incorporation are treated separately from your bylaws in how they're handled, even though they get scanned in together when you submit everything.
All right, I am not seeing anything. Not seeing anything else in the chat. I don't think we have any equipment rentals or discussions with any of our partners. I haven't seen anybody posting anything in the chat as far as that. So unless anybody has any other concerns, we can move on to the coordinator updates. First on the list is Anime Detour. Troy.
Sorry, I was responding to a different thing. Anime Detour. I guess I'll tell you sort of what we are able to be doing right now, and then move into a few more hypothetical paths. Right now, we're working on the, as we've talked about in a few meetings, the staff handbook. Taking that from the iteration that was just sort of I don't know if it was released a few years ago. I think it more likely escaped. But we are pulling that back. It was not. I think with the number of years that have gone by, there are some staff that don't know about it, never received it, so there wasn't as much focus being paid on sort of an annual signing or dissemination or having it easily accessible online for staff. So in looking to make those changes, we wanted to take the opportunity to make sure that it still reflected all of the sort of current things that we wanted to, and at least go over it before just releasing it. Don't know if anybody has seen, we have posted a few of the announced department head vacancies. We've been coupling that with, in addition to on some of our social media, a little visual versus it just being text, but also an actual position description. We will continue to work on having those available for when we want to start with all the department head positions, and then work with the department heads to have them available for various positions underneath them, and vice chair all the way up to the chairman, to make so that I think one of the best things we can do is if somebody is interested in a position, they have the ability to see what most of the position description is. They might change a little bit and be a little bit fluid, but we're getting started on that. So in that same vein, we are right in the middle of, we have a few more days left open on our guest head and artist alley head. We've been working to get interviews set up for those so that those can be filled. Today is our budget deadline, so hopefully everybody gets those to Kim, or she will send us the naughty list and we will follow up with that. We're still looking to set up a meeting with the Hyatt. A lot of their staff are still on furlough, and the meeting that we had scheduled was I'm trying to think. That was maybe 2 weeks ago. The incident down by, the protesting of an incident that happened in a parking ramp. There was some protesting down by the hotel. So I think that was a Wednesday or Thursday. But anyway, that Thursday and Friday, they had most of their people working from home. So we are looking to follow up with the hotel to see if we can get some specifics on, even though it could be theoretical, what sort of safety measures they will have in place for Detour, so that we can couple that with what measures we as an event can take in looking at making Detour 2021 safe. And I don't know if it'll go out this week yet, but within the next week or so, we want to get a sort of a State of the Union post out. While we may not typically have had, programming or artist alley forms open by now, we would have had registration open by now. So we want to let the general public know that it isn't open, but more so we want to let them know that the reason it isn't open, and that's that we're continuing to monitor these situations, and mostly, like I said, for the good of our community and any questions that come in, and so also the to not have that be such a nightmare social media wise. We want to have some answers for our guests, attendees, before we open up registration about what we can speak intelligently about now as to what we think they could expect, so things within our control. I suppose bigger picture, while we're still continuing to plan to go ahead with Detour until such time as we hear differently. I think, as I've said before, so apologize if sounds like a broken record, but it bears repeating that under current restrictions, I don't believe that there's any real possibility of holding Anime Detour 2021. That with the no gathering larger than 250, that's the primary. Is until something changes in that regard, there's not much we can do about that. And theoretically, even if that bumps up to 1,000, we're 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. I think the thought process is that is not as much of a help as one might think. So we're monitoring world news, taking that with a grain of salt, and until something Minnesota government wise is changed. So we still will be looking for right around the first part of December to I think that's probably when we'd like to have a decision. Theoretically, I suppose we could end up canceling, and suddenly March 1st, everything is wonderful again. I think realistically that's not real possible, but I think we have a responsibility to cancel within an appropriate time frame if we have to. Certainly easier to, in some ways, to cancel later in our convention cycle than it is to decide to step on the gas and plan a convention. But we'll be continuing to look at that. We are seeing some conventions that were planned for January 2021 are starting to cancel. That doesn't automatically mean we follow suit. We're still, but things are very similar for all of us. We are there's a prominent convention locally that, and we've seen this sort of happen on a national scale, where they aren't able to cancel, that they're sort of beholden to their, whether it's usually a convention center, asking them, not letting them cancel until 6 weeks before their event. I do intend to have a conversation with the Hyatt again, just to see what it would look like. The contract that we are under for this year, actually the contracts that we have in total with the Hyatt don't really have any sort of language fluctuation there. They were all the same when signed. So there was nothing newly introduced in an amendment covering, any sort of expansion of, force majeure or pandemics or things like that. So long story short, we're still moving forward until we can't move forward. We are starting to talk and we've had different depths of conversation with different department heads on what their departmental contribution would look like if we need to shift to a virtual convention. There's some departments that don't translate virtually, like Consuite or volunteers as we normally think of it. Con, that sort of thing. But I also want to make sure, we understand at primarily a detour level, but also an organization level, that it's also no small undertaking to put on the virtual con. That is also a large undertaking and commitment, and so that there will be lots of conversations about what our intent would be to put on there, what we can put on there, that sort of thing. There's a lot of really excellent examples that have happened already as for what conventions have done at all levels, bigger, smaller, similar, that sort of thing. So we'll be looking at those and then seeing, how that fits into what we're able to do. And hopefully, obviously our hope is to be able to put the convention on as we normally do, but with each passing week, we are a little more hesitant that that could happen. So, long story short, planning to move forward as we normally do, shifting to virtual if we have to, working with our hotel partner to keep on track of what they have to offer, what we can do, those sorts of things. Some sort of things if we're able to move forward, we're going to have to make sure we're working even closer with the hotel, which thankfully with our relationship with them shouldn't present an issue, but trying to set things up now for the restrictions that could be in place. If we are able to hold a con, one example could be we needing to re-sanitize the rooms in between panels could cause us to need to adjust programming blocks from the normal spacing. Also, that's a large undertaking for the hotel. Do they have the ability to do that? The staff to do it? So it'll be a lot of moving pieces to try and put together. It's a little difficult to try and forecast what restrictions may be in place in April. So, as always, if there's any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, or you can email us if there's something you think of later. But that's a lot to unpack, but that's what I have.
Okay. All right then. Not seeing any other stuff rolling into the chat there about that. So we can roll on to charities. I haven't heard any updates from anybody on that. No other requests or anything coming in. Unless anybody else has seen anything I haven't. We can roll on to communities. At the moment, we do not have a communities coordinator. I, as well as charities or communications. Last we had touched base on that, there was the youth cosplay group. We were going to be reaching out and having a discussion with them here later this month about how things are going on, and then touching base with all the clubs here coming up to just kind of touch base, see how things are going, and make sure that ball keeps rolling. Did anybody have any questions about that? All right, so we can move on to the communications. We kind of covered most of it earlier. At the moment, we do not have a branch coordinator for that, and we are still trying to get access to our old, not Instagram, Twitter, to our original Twitter page for ATC that hasn't been used in a number of years, but it is still there. Unfortunately, we do not have access to the phone number or the email that was used to create it. I've sent a number of emails to Twitter customer support to try to get access to it, because unfortunately we can't just deactivate it. They're not going to delete it. So we're trying to get it back so we can keep using it. And then right now we're trying to, anything we post, trying to make sure that it's cross-posted on the social media sites we do have access to, which right now is, for the most part, Facebook and Instagram. That's about it on that front. That moves us on to SOS. Heather.
Hi. So my team and I sketched together a budget request for the next cycle, which I sent off to Kim a bit ago with some notes about the stuff we'd filled in. So Kim should have that. The gaming event that we had planned had to be pushed out a bit, so it's now scheduled. We have it penciled in for September 20th. It's a Sunday. Again, the plan with that is similar to the virtual cosplay picnic thing that we did, doing a multi-activity gaming event, some online tabletop gaming and some video gaming and stuff like that. So that's the next thing that we have planned. Aside from that, we've just been doing the occasional casual social every week or two. So I think that's where we're at. Nothing else is coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, those have been kind of fun. I've hopped into a couple of the group chats, and those
Awesome.
Those are some really fun people.
Great. Yeah, so the thought is, so just I know that the board doesn't do line by line about the budget, but it's just basic overview. Our thought at this point is the only in-person events that really have a solid bet on happening would be this stuff in the summer. So
like
we've only left in the staff picnic and the cosplay picnic. We think that there's fair odds that those will be possible, but anything before then is just too questionable. So we left those on, and we left on funds for 2 quarterly socials, again, in case stuff is able to resume. By then, we want those funds to be there. Aside from that, we've added some funding for some of our online platforms and things, since that's going to be the primary focus, at least for the next several months. So that's what's on there, and it's significantly smaller than our budget requests have been. Since we don't have to, rent venues or buy stuff, so there's that. I think it's the smallest budget I've ever submitted, probably a third of what it usually is. So yay. So that's the.
I know it's kind of depressing to me.
Right? Yeah. Well, I was sitting there deleting all these rows and just delete and delete. I'm like, God, this is so sad. Oh, we worked so hard getting that stuff off the ground, and it breaks my heart to have to take. Some of these things, it'll be 2 years before they can be done again. But that's how it is, out of our control. So that's the outlook at this point. Comments or anything?
So I know I had mentioned it to you in email as well. Had you heard anything from anyone that was interested in applying for the coordinator position?
Well, I had a couple of people that were still thinking about it, but they're still thinking about it, so I can't really make promises there.
Nope, that's fine. It was just more
So,
of
yeah.
I hadn't heard anything, so I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that we weren't missing an email or something.
Mm-hmm. No, the most that I've heard so far is still thinking about it, so not even like a, probably just the thinking about it
Okay.
level. So I don't know for sure if anyone from my team will go for it or not, but
No, that's fine.
but they're aware of it, so it hasn't been written off yet.
Okay. Alrighty then. And then okay.
I'll probably plan on being at the next board meeting regardless, just to wrap stuff up. So, I did want to ask Troy who I should contact with the information about the service pins.
If you would send that to Ashley, we were going to ask about it.
Put it on her budget.
Yeah, we were going over that with. I went over that with Ashley very early this morning. So yeah, we wanted to reach out to you and make sure we had information on that whole process, so it did not go away.
Mm. Right. No, I'm gonna write something up because I've got like the Pantone color codes and all that stuff,
Okay.
and the information for the vendor and everything. But what's the good email address for that right now? Because I know stuff has changed hands, so I wanted to ask you.
AD_admin@ambdetroit.com.
Okay. Cool.
I'll go to everybody who needs it.
Awesome. It might not be immediate, but I'll get it to you by the end of the month, I think. that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we're finalizing for
Okay.
a little bit, so we'll be fine.
Okay. I'll probably run the pins up to the GPS or something and put them in the office. So I've got them here right now because I had them for the con, and then yeah. So.
Otherwise, I'm in the northern metro,
Okay.
but we can discuss that later too.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I should go by GPS at some point anyway, just to make sure that stuff there is in order as it's possible to be and whatnot. So it probably makes sense to just lock them in the cabinet or something, and keep them there. But the spreadsheet with everybody's record is on Google Drive, so I can just share that. I don't know I guess it's up to you guys if you want to count this year or not. I was on the fence. I was going to ask you what you thought, but that can be figured out later. So
I'll just throw a little something out there preliminarily. We can discuss it later. But my thought is, even though we weren't able to, see the fruits of our labor, there was still, everybody still did the same amount of work they did up until, 3 weeks before the con would have been put on. So
Right.
I want to, in my opinion, would not want to discount that. Heartbreaking we didn't get to see the, all of it come together. But that's my prelim thought.
That was my first instinct also. I mean, it's years of service. So you still put in a year of service even if there wasn't an event. But so I would agree, if that's what you wanted to do, I'd agree
That's
with
what I
that.
would prefer to do as far as, my opinion. I would prefer to continue to count that for the people.
Okay. Also, additional note, I think, so obviously this year it's not possible, but at this point, especially since we do have to cancel it this year, I think at this point, the New Year's party is probably at an end.
Yeah.
So attendance was way down the last couple of years, which personally, as much as I personally was sad about that because the New Year's party has always been one of the highlights of my year, it did occur to me that like early on, most of the people that were on staff, like the anime community was so much smaller and people were so insular and people didn't have anything else to do. And the fact is that now they do. That ATC has been successful in a way in that the community has grown and people have other friends and other parties and other things to do, which is great. Sad for me personally, but great news for the community. So yeah, I think the summer picnic would be good to keep if that's able to go off. But with the way that attendance have been going down and now losing this year for COVID, I think that so unless the people have a major objection, that's my viewpoint. So, and that is my final thing. Yeah,
Okay.
loss of English skills, but
It's almost Wednesday. It's to be expected. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you have the chat open, Heather, but
I
Allie
do,
says she
yeah.
always loved going to the New Year's Eve party, and she's sad to see it go.
I know it was important to to a handful of people that didn't have. I've been told that there were still some people that didn't have other plans, but it's just the attendance just isn't there to justify the time and money investment. So hopefully, still the picnic though. That would be good to have.
Yeah, that would be. I would really kind of really suck to lose that.
Yeah, there should be something fun for staff.
Yeah.
At least once a year, there should be some fun activity for all of HEC staff to be able to get together and do. So whatever happens, I hope that sticks in some way, shape, or form. Some kind of casual thank you party for the team. So especially because we don't have the volunteer party anymore, having for the past several years, I don't think. Yeah, there used to be one after the con. Yeah, I think it got merged up with the June picnic, and then I think it stopped being advertised to volunteers. So I think ultimately it went away.
Okay.
Yep. So I would hope that something would stick around, some kind of fun party thing.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Assuming that parties are ever possible again.
Yeah.
Pessimism. Woo. Anyway,
Optimism.
all right, I'm shutting up now.
Optimism.
Shutting up now.
Optimism. We can hope. We can hope.
Hmm.
I'm just really trying to hope that things are gonna get better. I mean, not necessarily the next couple months, but at least by the time I can go back outside in shorts next year. Then again, I do wear shorts in February, so that's so that's debatable. Okay. So I'm not seeing anything else in chat or anything about any questions. So next we can move on to finance with Kim.
All right. Well, yesterday morning I sent out the financials. They should be pretty redundant to you all by now. Nothing's really changing right now in the next few months. I'm not seeing anything that should change other than the basic expenses. Christina, I sent you the numbers a little while ago, so hopefully
Yes.
you got them and you can check them at your leisure. But the bank account is at $208,042.20. The education fund is at $2,262.35. And the leg account is at $10,892.10. So this month marks the end of our financial year. And so with that in mind, the last week of September is the week I will make the deposit into the leg account or the matching amount from the donations that have been received to date. Those donations are $2,106. So if that number doesn't change, that is how much will be moved out of the bank account and into the leg account per the match requirement. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna work on trying to clean up some of these outstanding checks that people don't seem to want to cash. They're mostly Artist Alley checks and registration refund checks. So I can find email addresses for everybody. I guess I'll be sending out emails and saying, hey, cash the dang check I sent you back in March, because it's going to be stale dated here in the next couple of weeks.
Kim, I'm really sorry. Regarding the Artist Alley, do you want me to send an email to all of the artists and saying, hey, you should cash your check. If you don't, you're going to lose the money?
No, I'll take care of it. There's 7 people. 7 of the 12 checks are Artist Alley checks, and I have unless the email address I have from the drive or from my database is not valid, I should be able to reach all of them. If I can't reach somebody, I'll see if you have another email address.
No, everything that you have, anytime I update it, it also updates your file too.
Okay.
So it should be the same.
The only problem person I can really foresee is the person you might remember from the sea glass guy that.
Oh, Calvin, kind of like a last edition.
No, yeah, maybe Calvin, was that his name?
Yeah, it's Calvin. So
okay. And his check
was on the waiting list.
To an Alice Jing.
Yep.
I'm sorry, if this is detour business, can we get back to the board just for the sake of time, especially since we have the bylaws today? Like, can the detour stuff happen all?
Kim, I'll talk to you later about it. Sorry.
That's fine. Tristan, I am assuming that you got my emails from William and on the directors and officers insurance.
The insurance. Yes.
If you could print that out, sign it, send it back to me so I can get it into State Farm, that would be great.
Yes, I will try to get that back to you tomorrow.
You will work directly with William then?
Yes, I will give him a call.
All right. That's all.
Okay. All right. At this point, because we got to go over the bylaws, and that is gonna take a little bit. I would like to take a 15-minute break real quick, bathroom and whatnot. Just in case the bylaws do go extra long. Anybody else got a problem with that? Alrighty. We'll be back here in just a little bit, folks. So we can go over the last item on the list, which would be the bylaws.
I'm gonna kill my video, but I'll still be listening.
Alrighty, everybody. How you doing? You're alive. You're well. Please tell me you're caffeinated, because this is gonna be so much fun. Just as a reminder for anybody that has just joined us, these meetings are counted towards attendance for voting rights and other things. Please make sure you're contacting Christina, our secretary. You can find her email in the chat there. We'll be posting it here again in just a minute, as well as posting in the chat that you are here so that you are counted for attendance. With that being said, we are going to start up with the last thing on the list for this evening, which is the recent changes in the bylaw revision process. And people are more than welcome to bring up any questions or concerns regarding the regarding any changes, why they were made, what they were before, and such. Alrighty, Ashley, I will hand it off to you.
Okay. So we did these a while ago, like 3 or 4 meetings ago, and it took a really long time. A lot of this is just updates on comments that were made at that time and where we're sitting. So hopefully it's going to be bylaws speed round. That's my goal. Okay. So nothing had changed in Article 1 from the original or from the last meeting. So it's just these same 2 changes. We're adding the abbreviation for our sanity for the rest of the document and changing that to say most prominently. Article 2, which is membership. We've seen a lot of format changes. I do have a comment here that I wanted to discuss with the board. Right now it says Twin Cities metropolitan area. That area fluctuates a lot. Do we want to just set it to a preset address, such as the GPS office? Or
I would not want to say an address just because it can change. I would, however, be comfortable saying Minneapolis, because with all of our documents with the IRS and our founding documents, that is where we are listed as being registered, is in Minneapolis.
Hennepin County. That's not how you spell Hennepin. Oh, apparently. Okay, whatever. It's Hennepin. Yeah, if we're just gonna make it match our articles of incorporation, it would be Hennepin County, Minneapolis. I just, since we have everybody on the call, did anybody else have anything they wanted to say regarding that, or no?
I think that's a good substitution.
Okay, because generally you put Minneapolis into a search thing, it will just bring you to the center of the city for distance things. So we didn't change anything else in this particular paragraph. We still have the operating year is defined as the time between the previous annual meeting and the upcoming annual meeting. And that the annual meeting now has to be separated from the post-mortem, but has to occur within 60 days of that post-mortem. So it can be the next day and it can be 2 months later. It doesn't matter. Board just has to schedule it within 60 days. And then we have so this is to gain voting rights. So you have to be within a certain distance. You have to meet your meeting requirements in the operating year. And then there's the annual meeting. So meeting requirements, you have to personally have signed in at 60% of the meetings held in the previous operating year by the same ATC branch or ATC board.
So with the wording on that section, it's a little bit confusing. Is it saying that you have to do the ATC board or NMA detour meetings independently, or is it going to be a combination thereof?
You have 5 different branches to go down. You have communities if they hold meeting. You have charities if they hold meeting. You have SOS. You have there's a 4th one, communications. And then
communications, charity,
detour, and the board. So you have 6 different tracks. So you can't mix and match your meetings. You can't go to like 3 board meetings and 2 detour meetings. you have to do 60% of one of those meetings. So as board members, you would get 60% of the board meetings. Or if you didn't, for some reason, as a board member, get 60% as a board meeting, but you went to 60% of the detour meetings, you would get it. As for meeting requirements, which is the subsection of that, the individual branch is required to hold a minimum of 4 meetings during the year. The meetings must be published to the ATC calendar, and they must be open to the public. So, like, Detour has department head meetings. Those cannot count towards voting rights because they're not necessarily open to the public. I mean, technically are, but they're not. Nor are they advertised on the ATC calendar. So it just clarifies that those meetings can't be used. A copy of the sign-in for the meeting must be sent to the ATC secretary within 1 week of the meeting to keep on record in case of any disputes when calculating voting rights. We ran into this from the detour standpoint because that's where a lot of people get their voting rights. They don't necessarily attend or know the other branches right now. And there was a lot of disputes, but the person who was handling the management of the attendance was no longer around, and those records were never there. So this way it goes to the ATC secretary, who verifies everyone's voting rights. And we have a record of it in case somebody wants to say, well, you know, so-and-so has a thing against me. Well, now it goes up to the board, and you can dispute with the board directly. The board doesn't have to be stuck in this position where they don't know what's going on. That kind of thing. And then there's a thing for waivers saying the ATC board, ATC coordinator, and member of ATC cannot waive any of the requirements. So the board can't say John can have voting rights, even though he only, and I'm just using John as a generic name, not because you're in this call, but
Right.
John only attended 30% of his meetings. So you can have voting rights just because we like John. We can't do that. We also can't waive the requirement for dues, which is listed in the above. We can't waive the requirement for distance. So basically, we can't just give people voting rights that haven't met the criteria listed above. And it's not just we as the board, it's anybody. Any person in the organization cannot make those requirements go away. And then we go down to non-voting. So non-voting members still have to pay their dues, and they are either under the age of 18 or have not met requirements for voting membership. So they have not met the distance or the attendance, but they are still members. Non-voting members are eligible to fill offices of ATC, but cannot vote outside their office if chosen. So there's a couple of us that are currently in that kind of situation, like myself, where I can't vote on like a bylaw change, and I can't vote, like an example, appointing Dave. I can't be one of the votes to ratify him to the board from the membership. I don't have membership voting rights. I can only vote in the course of these board meetings, and that is the only time that I have any sort of voting rights. So I have paid my dues. I did not make attendance meetings last year. So.
You're a good boy.
And then, yes, please. And then we separated dues out, so it's a lot easier because before they sat in the voting section, but dues apply to both members. So we separated that out so it was a little bit clearer, and we separated out the way that it needs to, not the way it needs to be. We separated out how you can get your dues because originally it said you had to purchase a detour badge. And some of our members don't attend detour, so why are we charging them for a detour badge? So your members must pay your $15 annual dues. The dues are paid through either a direct payment to ATC, the purchase of an anime detour badge. There's a subsection there adding if a documented badge transfer in the anime detour registration system will also trigger the attached ATC membership of that badge to be passed on to the recipient of the transfer. So we had to add that piece in due to a state statute.
Can I pause you for 1 second? Troy, is there any way you can mute your mic? I can like hear Ashley through your speakers coming in through your mic. Please.
I don't have well, I guess the speaker on here. Let's see.
Yeah, you can just like hit the mute in the Google meeting.
Thanks,
Right.
Christina. I just asked Eric, I'm like, are you hearing feedback coming
Yep.
from my microphone here somewhere?
Yep. Nope. It happens at work all the time. So you can go now, Ashley. Thank you.
Okay. Stop and go. Okay, so we had to add the documented badge transfer language. There is a state statute. It is 317A.405, if anybody's interested. As to what that statute actually says, it just basically says that we have to have the language in our bylaws if we want to have transfers. And then the third way is a person who receives a complimentary badge to Anime Detour must pay their dues to retain voting rights and membership. So even if you're a vendor or it's been in discussion about having some sort of incentive program for staff members to not have to pay $45, I believe is what we're paying right now. There's been discussion of it. Nothing's been decided. It's just in those cases, if you receive a badge, you are not automatically a member, but if you pay your $15, you will still be a member, or you can be a member. So it just allows for complimentary badges to occur. So that there was concerns about vendors and participants and stuff like that, people who do get badges. So that addresses that issue. So any question about the membership section?
It makes a lot more sense now. Yay.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than it used to be. We were just trying to
I was just say the
clarify.
one thing to clarify to point out on John's statement where he said it was confusing on the stuff is on section A1, the meetings. That is one thing that we made sure to include on there when we did that, is that it does state that it is by the same ATC branch or ATC board. So it does clarify, or so it does try to clarify that you're not that you can't mix and match the meetings.
Gotcha. Makes sense now. Thank you.
Yep. And I know initially upon reading it, it's a little confusing. And that's part of the reason why I want to make sure we had this conversation so we can start trying to make it as least confusing as possible. The language has to be a little goofy here because there's no good way to say that. But all right, if there's nothing else for that, then we're going to go down to organization. This section had a lot of edits. So as you can see, I have a comment here to talk about a specific election section. So I can either talk about that or we can go through the organization first.
Let's go through the organization first, just
okay.
so people are aware what's there.
Okay, so organization basically goes through the board of directors and a couple other things that are organization based. So the organization, ATC shall have a president, secretary, treasurer, and a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 members at large. That means that's why we do not have to fill all of our seats. If somebody resigns, we do not necessarily have to fill it to have 5 members at large. That's not a requirement. You have to be officers in good standing, which by default means you've paid your dues and you're not currently under disciplinary action. And that's just the default definition of what good member in good standing means. You're elected for a 2 operating year term at the annual meeting, and each officer may serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms, after which you must abstain from consideration for at least 1 full Okay, that is a
Well, 1 full 2 operating year?
Yeah.
No?
So 2 operating year. I'm sorry, I forgot
1
I
full
added this
term,
note.
maybe?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to say 1 full term. Yep, because we use 2 consecutive terms here. So term automatically means 2 operating year. Yes. So, boop. That's what that was supposed to say. I apparently missed one of my notes. So, 1 full term between being elected or before being elected to the board of directors again. This limit does not apply to the treasurer. Nor does it apply if the number of new candidates for the board is equal or less than the number of outgoing officers, excluding the treasurer in that case. Persons convicted of a felony under state or federal laws are ineligible to serve as officers of the organization. Any questions in that section? Hearing none. Then we go to president. President is defined as an executive officer. Most of this reads the same as the last time. If anybody wants a copy of this, I can just give it to them. The biggest as you can tell, I apparently changed how I was doing comments somewhere in the middle of editing this. The only thing that changed was this last sentence was the presidential term will be offset one operating year from the treasurer. It just sounds cleaner than what was there previously. So it just means the president and the treasurer will alternate years. I did the same thing here. All right, so then treasurer is going to be the same as it was last time. Same thing. We just changed this sentence wording to be a little bit more clear and concise.
And you hold on. You use treasurer twice in the treasurer sentence instead of president.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right, so I do not believe any changes happened to secretary. No changes happened to secretary. Members at large, there was a beginning portion of the sentence that said the members at large were the governing body, but that's the board of directors as a whole, so I deleted that portion of the sentence. No other changes have been made since the last time you guys have seen these edits for members at large. So any questions about all of section A, which is basically positions? Nope. Okay. So B, coordinators, and I believe this is all new. I believe. So this was just to clarify the selection process. I think we can. What are you doing? So the board of directors may appoint a coordinator for each official ATC branch. The word may is important here. It means we do not have to appoint a coordinator if we do not see fit for some reason. Generally, we're still going to want to, but the may is still important there. Coordinators are responsible for working with the treasurer to create and present their budgets to the board of directors for approval, and coordinators may not sit on the board of directors. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Selection process. ATC shall post across all available platforms the title and description of the open positions. The position will remain open for a period of time of no less than 30 days. All applicants must be interviewed prior to the board meeting following the closure and an answer ready to be presented at that meeting. The board is not required to select any candidate and may leave the position open if they feel it is in the best interest of the organization. Just as a note, Tristan, I think that said proceeding, but that made for some funky timelines, and then you were actually closing it sooner, so I changed proceeding to following, and that solved the logic issue there. But otherwise, that's, yeah, logic issues. You can't close a meeting before you close the meeting, because you weren't gonna, yeah, it was weird. So any questions about coordinators in the selection process? Now that we actually have that in the, or we're aiming to have that in the bylaws. Nope. Okay, so then section C is the inauguration. Newly elected board members will be installed at the second board meeting after the election. Board member elects are required to attend the board meeting directly after the election, but they are not eligible to vote as a board member until they are installed. So that means elections happen at annual board or annual meeting. And so the following month, anybody who was elected at that meeting will attend kind of like a transfer meeting, but they don't have any voting rights. They don't really have any rights at the meeting to make any motions or anything like that. They're just kind of sitting there. And then the meeting after that is when they get voting rights and they can make motions and they are officially on the board.
I've got one quick question, kind of as a as an in between. So after they've been elected, they have to attend that meeting. Then at what point do like sometimes we deal with things via email, and then until the next meeting. At what point do we allow them to be involved in any of that pre the next meeting? Like, is it essentially as soon as the previous meeting closes, they are then the elected board member?
So they are installed. So they are a board member at the second meeting, but they are not installed until like the end. So yeah, you would be correct. It'd be at the end of that meeting. So they would be a board member and they would be involved. They don't get voting rights, and you don't get voting rights outside of a meeting anyway. So you wouldn't get voting rights until the following meeting is called to order. So even
because
if it's
anything that we would vote on, we always have to ratify at the next meeting anyways. So they'd be able to be involved in those discussions and that kind of pre-vote, and then just assuming that we would make the same vote at the meeting.
So I
that
mean,
they didn't change their minds or something.
Yeah, so they would be involved in those discussions. So they wouldn't. So like if something came up for a vote or something was like discussed, they can, if the previous board decided to do something and the incoming board didn't agree with it, they can undo it or not ratify that change at the following meeting themselves because they were there. They have to be there. It's kind of like a transference to make sure you're updated, you know what's going on. And that's how it currently reads too. That's in the current documentation. And that's why John and I, and technically Tristan, but Tristan was still outgoing at the time too. So he was weird. But John and I were in that meeting after the election, and we just couldn't vote. We couldn't make motions, but we were still part of the discussion and we were still there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to make sure to kind of clarify that it's essentially anything that happens in between is not really a board meeting, but they can be involved in that until.
Yep. So they are a board member as of the second meeting. So they're still supposed to be in those communications and everything, but their voting rights would not exist until the next meeting is called to order. Even if that's a special meeting, it still counts. It's just the next meeting after that.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so then we go into removal and replacement. I did not change anything in here since the last time. Just brief run through. It was just clarifying the removal of an officer or an executive officer and how we have to handle that. And while I'm sitting here, I'm sorry. I'm gonna add that comment there because we ran into that issue. Should probably actually have a tiebreaker.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I forgot that it for some reason didn't end up on my notes. So we'll have to add tiebreaker language into, should probably go into elections somewhere, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But none of this has changed since the last time you guys have seen it. So I don't think there should be any new questions with that. So going back up to this comment about how to have specific election sections. So currently we don't define how our elections are done in our bylaws. I don't think it's necessarily a requirement, but especially if we're talking about continuing with e-ballot, or if we're going to have an in-person meeting, we might want to have language in our bylaws to clarify what's going on with that. Like right now, you go to an annual meeting, you get told if you have voting rights, you get to cast a ballot at the annual meeting. That's where statements are read and questions can be asked, but the election happens right then. If we continue with e-ballot, or we're having e-ballot as an option, then we need to talk about, and that will come up later too, but we'll need to talk about if we're allowing normally like 7 days, or like what would be the appropriate time to open the elections if you're going to cast an e-ballot. Are we going to allow an e-ballot at the same time we allow a physical meeting and a physical vote? Do we need to add proxy language for the case that we do have physical votes, but you can still cast a vote before that meeting? Do we know who we're electing to the board at the annual meeting? Do we need to talk about having a question and answer statement beforehand, or pre-selected questions that all applicants who are campaigning for a board seat have to answer beforehand? So if the board has any ideas, or if anybody listening has any ideas, I'd be interested into what you guys want to see for that kind of language, because there's so many options. I don't necessarily know which way to go with it.
Keep it simple. However, whatever that solution is, the easiest one.
Kiss.
Pick that one.
See, that would have been easy pre-COVID, but then COVID happened.
Right?
And so it's just like, we need to understand like where we're going to sit. Proxy voting might be the way to do it. I don't know. And
What-
if we want
what
to have a
does
discussion about that.
mean exactly.
So
like
proxy
e-voting?
You can make e-voting a type of proxy vote. So like the other organization I'm in, they will send you a piece of paper. So there's a physical form, and it will list who the current candidates are that have put in for that in that position. And then they'll also have blanks next to all those positions. So you can write somebody in, but you can't nominate via proxy. So you can write somebody in, but you better hope somebody nominated the person you wrote in at the meeting to be a write-in, or to whatever, because you have to have a motion to be a write-in. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to suddenly run this day. That's just how theirs is set up. So
That's
you can
confusing.
fill out this piece of paper, and you have to mail it, and it has to be postmarked by a set period of time, and it occurs like weeks before the voting. It's like absentee voting.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's too complicated.
We're,
E-ballots.
well, we can do e-ballots in a similar fashion. Because as far as e-ballots go, I believe only the secretary or somebody who is not part of the election can actually see the names are, because we have to verify that they're only voting once. But the names can't be released. Like we just have to make sure that that's listed in there if we're doing that.
Well,
because it
like,
has to be anonymous.
There's the list of names of who is getting the ballot, but you don't see who votes
That's
for
even
what.
better. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen the back end of e-ballot, so I didn't know if they automatically made it anonymous for you or not. That's actually
it's
that's even
automatically
better.
anonymous, and it just tells you if they voted or not yet. So if you
Oh.
check it right away, you could figure it out. But I try not to do that
Just like
because
refresh every 5 seconds.
right.
So that's something to consider. If anybody has any comments about it, like obviously I'm not expecting an answer right this second. You can email me or whatever, message me in Slack, something like that. I can come up with a couple drafts of different language. I don't know what would fit best for the organization right now. I don't know what our new normal looks like. I'm trying to think of how to keep it simple but still be prepared for if we can't have physical meetings, or if we can't have stuff and things. So that is a consideration. So actually, before I scroll on, is there any last comments, concerns, questions about organization Article 3? Nope. Okay. So going on to Article 4, wherever that is, meetings. So this got a little revamped. We now have subsections. So we have our board meetings. None of that actually changed. It just got put under a subsection, so it matched the format of the rest of the document. And then we had special meetings, which once again, none of that changed. It just got moved into its own subsection. So the text itself didn't change, just formatting. There is a need for electronic meeting language. I'm trying to find a good way to, I'm trying to find good wordings for it. That I'll probably approach the board for directly when I find different wordings. Right now, the only examples I have found either require that you have to have physical meetings, and then you have to vote each meeting to have an electronic meeting at your follow-up meeting, or you have a stipulation that all your meetings have to be electronic and you vote whenever you want to have a physical meeting. I feel like that is not a good system. We should be able to choose. It's probably just a stipulation of communication at that point, because once again, I don't know what our new normal looks like. And it also, electronic meeting language would also stipulate that, we vote by raising our hands, and everybody is required to have a camera, so that we can, physically, or if we can verify it's you and that you are voting, or that you are making a motion, or that you are speaking. So that kind of language. Any questions for Article 4? Nope. All right, so then Article 5, once again, none of this changed. It just grew subsections. I did not have headers for them. I don't know if I'll have headers for them. If anybody wants to come up with titles, because my brain was fried at that point, then we can make titles for them. But none of the language actually changed here, and then I just moved all of the amendment notes to the following page. So they are still on here. I'm not going to scroll again because it's, people are probably still reading. But there was a list of all the amendments that have ever been made to this document. I just tabbed them to the next page. So they're still part of this document. They're not gone. They're not going away. They're just not butted right up against to the amendments section. So if anybody has any questions or comments for Article 5, I do have a note to add voting procedure. Sorry. We need a voting procedure. It probably won't go here. It is affected by bylaw changes in the most, but it would also probably affect elections depending on how it's worded. So voting procedure will either be part of bylaws or we'll have two different sections. One up with the organization and the board for election specific voting, and then one down in amendments for bylaw specific voting, because those are two very different things. So once again, I'm just coming up with language. This one should be easier to come up with, especially now that I know the e-ballots are anonymous. I didn't know that, so thank you for telling me that. So that would make that easier to handle for bylaw changes. So any questions, comments, concerns for the entire document?
I like it.
At this point, I have no comments.
Is there somewhere that I can print a hard copy of it so I can?
Yeah, I can send the link out to the board again.
That'd be great. I'm sure I had it somewhere and
I
dumped it because I'm not a keeper.
Yeah, no worries. I can send the link out to the board again. I was going to do that before the meeting, and obviously that didn't happen.
Hey, Ashley, for this document, can we get a legend up on top so we can see who's made what modifications?
No, I didn't. So I was going to change it all to black. Modifications are all out the window at this point. Nobody has made modifications in over a month. And the last person to make a modification was Tristan, and then no modifications were made since the last time it was presented because I couldn't figure out any way to fix it. And I had a special session with a friend of mine who is much more experienced in this. And so most of it happened in electronics rather than editing any of the actual text itself, because we're getting closer to a final product, and closer to something that would be given to our lawyer to review, or just to make sure that we're not, causing any problems. So
Gotcha.
all of this is actually going to go away, all of this color.
Okay.
But yeah, nobody has made any edits to it in a couple of months, until I could get one of my contacts down for a special session with me to help figure out the logic issues that were brought up during the last time we talked about this.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So if nobody else has any questions, comments, or concerns for it, we can consider this bylaw speed round.
Woohoo!
So much faster.
I
Looks
tried.
good. You did good work.
Okay, I don't.
And the team.
We are so
So I
much
realize
closer.
now I should have written this down as we were going through it, but there was a few points that you were looking for assistance with: tiebreaker language, voting procedures, and I think there was at least one more.
Yeah,
Special
hang
rep.
on.
Or
That
no.
was answered. Yeah, elections, specific election language, tiebreaker language, electronic meeting language, and electronic voting procedure language. Because I believe we had discussed, at least those that were working with the bylaws, had discussed having all of our membership voting, which is bylaws and appointment ratifications be done electronically, so that we weren't going into like a detour meeting and then confusing people or requiring members who had voting rights through other means to attend a detour meeting. And then just throwing it in the middle there and causing some confusion.
Yep. Okay,
How do I
perfect.
stop? How do I stop?
Bottom of the screen. So
Well, this is gonna get weird for 2 seconds.
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That is the last of our topics.
So are we going to be hopefully finalizing these in October then? Is that our
Hopefully.
goal? Okay.
Hopefully, I have 2 or 3 other people that I've reached out to. I've reached out to 2 people regarding language. I also Robert's Rules of Order came out with their 12th edition this month, and it was just released, so that will be in my inbox tomorrow. So I will have the fancy schmancy revised version that I can look at too.
And so then, because this is happening in October, do we want to push out the 5-year plan and the recording board meetings again?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Let's just push those to December. Just because
Okay,
worst case scenario, I feel something's gonna bite us in the butt in either October or November, and this way we're trying to plan ahead.
Okay.
Troy?
Troy's got a hand up.
I just have a question on how, like, what's the order of finalizing them? Would we send it to an attorney for review, suggestions, etc., before making a motion to finalize those as our bylaws?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, that's the intention, is that we get a professional opinion on them